Hey guys, welcome to the Driven Not Given podcast. I'm going to talk about today team building and which one of these three people you would rather have on your team. Would you rather have the A player, which is somebody that has already achieved success, has the skills and has the experience, the B player that hasn't achieved the success but has right around the same amount of experience and skills, or the C player is somebody who is coachable but doesn't have the experience or the skills? We're going to talk about that, especially for those of you team builders. You want to check out this episode. So here's the deal. There's three kinds of people, and I learned this probably in 2011 or 2012. One of my best mentors I ever had taught this to me, and it made a lot of sense. And what was interesting, the time that he's taught this to me was when I transitioned from a B player to an A player. So it resonated with me. It made total sense, because sometimes if you've been an A player for a long time, you don't really remember the B player days as much, right? They're not very vivid in your mind. So let me explain what I mean. The A player is somebody, as I mentioned earlier, but I'm going to elaborate a little bit more, who is already successful. They have the experience, they have the skills, right? If we're talking about sales, if we're talking about direct sales or network marketing, they have the leadership ability. They are good presenters. They are good salespeople, right? They are good recruiters. And they've already got the experience and the 1099s, the documentation. Hey, I'm the man. Look what I've done. I've got all this experience and all these skills, all these accolades. Here's the deal. But guess what else they have? Most of the time, these people also have the big ego. They're not coachable, right? So because they're big, they got a big ego because of their accolades, and they're not coachable, they expect special treatment. Like, yeah, I'm not willing to go out on the field like I used to before, or I'm not willing to take a regular position. I need a more advanced position. And is their right to ask for it? Frankly, of course, it's their right to ask for it. And if they can negotiate that, go for it. So my question to you is, to start off the video, which one of these three people did you recommend? And most people will say, I'd like to take the A player because he's already got the skills, he's got the resume, he's got the accolades. Personally, I'll much rather take the B players. Here's why. To recap and to elaborate on the B player. The B player is somebody that has the experience. Very often they have the same amount of skills or more skills than the A player. And you may be asking, how and why would this person have the same skills and experience, but hasn't really achieved the levels of success? Let me tell you why. When it comes to success in business, there's an old saying that the T in timing is more important than the T in talent. I'll give you an example. I got started in the real estate industry, as I'm not a realtor anymore, but I used to be, in 2003. It was booming, right? 2004, 2005 approximately, we were doing stated income loans. You could be a gardener saying, I make 30 grand a month. You just stated it, 30 grand a month, boom. Stated income, they didn't verify anything. Everybody was getting qualified. The industry was doing good. The economy was doing good. My point is, it was easy to sell. The timing. However, me personally, I wasn't the sharpest. I wasn't the most disciplined. I was at the right place at the right time, right? And of course, I developed some skills. In 2008, the market crashes, everything changes. People like me, I'm in my mid-20s, I leave the industry. I wasn't prepared for the industry when it was hard. A lot of times the B players haven't achieved the level of success that the A players have achieved because they haven't been at the right place at the right time, right? Sometimes you got an A player that has made in his career in the last, 10 years, $1 million, $100,000 a month, a year on average. And he says, I've been with 3 companies. I made over $1 million in the last 10 years or the last 5 years. Treat me special. The B player may be more experienced, have better skills even, but doesn't have that resume. Why? Because the A player got started at the right place at the right time and caught the momentum. And that hasn't happened to the B player. The B player, because they haven't had this level of success yet, guess what? They're more coachable. They're more humble. And they're more willing to put in the work necessary to get them the success, especially because they're hungry. They've never achieved it. They're still striving for the recognition and the success. It's not only the success, but it's a recognition that comes along with the success. So they're more humble and willing to work. So my mentor taught me, says, JC, there's A players, B players, and C players. I was currently working with some A players and I was working with some B players. And he says, you're putting a lot of attention to these A players. Let me tell you something. These A players, they're not going to be very coachable. They have an ego too big. You'd have to be making so much more money than them for them to actually listen. You're going to spin your wheels more with them. I'm not saying not to work with them, but I am telling you that you will spin your wheels with them more. The B players, I've seen these guys present and train. And look how long they've been in the industry. And they're willing to be coachable. They're willing to be humble. When you talk to them, they're humble, they listen. I would spend more time with your B players than your A players. And it clicked. Because at the time, I was making about 20 grand a month with him, right? With that company. But just 2 years prior, 1 year prior even, I wasn't even making $8,000 a month. I knew at the time, when I was not making $8,000 a month, I knew that I had the skills of these people on stage training, getting the big recognition. Very often I would say, man, I could do a better job in the presentation, in the training than that guy can. I out-recruit and outsell that person. It's just not my time yet. And I knew I was breaking in that I was a B player, right? So I remember thinking, oh, I see, I'm dealing with these A players. And I guess because I was a new A player, I was still humble and I had a good coach. And I always had the discipline of do what got you to the dance. Keep leading from the front. The C players are the people that they don't have the skills, they don't have the experience, they're going through it, they're getting started, and that's okay. And in business, whether it's network marketing, direct sales, running a sales meet office of some sort, let's say it's real estate or solar, whatever the case may be, you need the C players because you're going to see which one of these C players go out there and become B players and eventually A players. So you need a lot of C players and you'll always have more C players. But if I were to choose who do I want to work with, A players or B players, don't get me wrong, I love to work with A players that don't have an ego, that are humble and willing to put in the work. The problem is that they're not as willing to put in as much work as the B players. They're not as humble as the B players. So if I don't know anybody and I don't know the details of anybody, I would take the B players all day long because, again, they have the skills, they have the experience, they're willing to work, and they're a lot more humble and coachable than the A players are. And I don't have to teach them all of the basics like I do to the C players. So that would be my recommendation. So a lot of you guys that watch this channel, you guys are in sales, team building of some sort, whether it be EXP realtors, some of the power reps, right? Network marketers, whatever the case may be. You want to identify whether you're working with A players, B players, or C players and make sure that your time is set accordingly. Here's another thing that happens. Very often, I've got people in my organization today, and I've always had these kind of people. They went from B players, making a couple $1,000 a month, $2,000 to $5,000 a month, but they developed the skills from being in the industry for so long that they're A player material. They just need the right opportunity. They need the right timing. Here's what happens. When they go from B players to A players, now they're making 10 grand a month, 20 grand a month, 50 grand a month or more. All of a sudden, they're A players. They stop showing up to the trainings. They stop being coachable. They stop showing up to the meetings. They stop doing all the things that got them to the dance because here's what happens when you become an A player. Here's what I'm telling you. Do not get to this point. Stay humble. Stay the course. Keep following the system that got you to this position. They are humble all the way up until they get to a certain level of success. Then they're not humble anymore. They're not willing to do all these things. So what happens to their income? Their income plateaus. And very often after it plateaus, it goes down because remember, in any team building opportunity, your people will do what you do, not what you say. My recommendation is don't get to that point where you plateau because you stop doing the things that got you there, but rather keep doing that consistently and persistently. Very few people will go to the plateau and then continue to increase after the plateau. I see this with people. I got people that make $150,000 a year, $250,000 a year, $300,000 a year. They're not nowhere to be found in the trainings, in the meetings, in the special events. And here's a funny part. Like in my business, we do paid events. We have a bunch of free events. 95% of our trainings are free, but about 5 to 10% are paid. Some of these people, think about this. before they were successful, they didn't have the amount of money and success that they currently have. So at that time, when they didn't have that money, guess what? They were in a position where they were willing and able, humble, to pay for the event. When they become successful, all of a sudden it's like, bro, you got successful through the system, through the training, through following what we train, and now you expect to get into the training for free. That makes no sense. Why? Because they're no longer humble. You've got to be hungry and you've got to hustle. So it's really H3. Hungry, hustle, and humble, right? And a lot of times, when people become A players, they stop being humble. My recommendation is when you become an A player, if you're not, and if you already are, my recommendation is take inventory of what you used to do. What are the things that you did that got you there? Are you still doing those things? Most people, when they get to, and everybody's number is a different number. For some people, it's 10 grand a month. Boom, they stop really doing this stuff. Trust me, you're going to go backwards. If you want to continue to increase, you got to continue to do the things that got you to the dance, because again, your people is going to do what you do, not what you say. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this short episode of the Driven Not Given podcast. Share with me in the comments any experience, any comments, if you agree with me or disagree with me, and make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. With that being said, I'll see you at the top from the top. Take care.